Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SOHO's Penning the Past lecture series. I'm Dean Glass, and I'm glad to have you join us for what promises to be an engaging and insightful presentation. We're thrilled to host two esteemed guests, David Marshall and Eileen Magno, colleagues at Heritage Architecture and Planning, a San Diego firm celebrated for its dedication to historic preservation. David, an accomplished architect, has curated a remarkable collection of vintage postcards, many of which you will see today. Eileen, a skilled historian, complements these visuals with engaging stories that bring the city's lost landmarks and forgotten moments back to life. Together, they present a compelling exploration of San Diego's forgotten past. Their book, Forgotten San Diego, published by Arcadia Publishing, is a vivid tribute to our city's layered history. Through a carefully collected selection of postcards, David and Eileen uncover the architectural and cultural narratives that have shaped our community. Today, we'll explore the stories of vanished buildings, evolving neighborhoods, and the people who left their mark on San Diego. If you have any questions along the way, please enter them into the chat feature, and we will get to them after the presentation. Now, please join me in giving a warm welcome to David Marshall and Eileen Magno.
Thank you, Dean.
Good morning.
Good morning. Should we go ahead and get started, or are we going to leave a little time for the late joiners here?
You can go ahead and get started. I think that'll...
Okay.
Oops, I'm trying to get my spotlight off. There we go.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here and help present the book that Eileen and I are very proud of. I've never co-authored a book before. I did one previous Arcadia book on Balboa Park, but this is one I wanted to get Eileen involved in because of her writing and research skills. And basically, the concept of the book, Forgotten San Diego, is to cover aspects of San Diego County's history that may have been forgotten, or I guess you can't forget things you don't know about, but things that were unknown or that have disappeared over the years that should be appreciated. So that was kind of the concept of the book. And then Eileen and I went through my collection of about 4,000 San Diego County postcards, and we picked about 220 cards that we felt were the most interesting. Some of which sometimes it was just an interesting photo that we didn't know the backstory of, and we found some really amazing stories behind them. Sometimes it was an interesting photo and there wasn't really a story behind it, so we didn't end up using it. But we had a good variety of images, and we learned a lot ourselves about San Diego's history. So we're going to walk you through about 40 or so pages from the book, or images from the book. And then at the end, we're going to do a Q&A. So let me get my PowerPoint up here. All right, well, this is the cover of the book. And it came out, was it 2023 or 2024? I don't remember, Eileen.
2023.
Yeah, I think it was toward the middle or end of 2023. Yeah. Again, Eileen and I are co-owners of Heritage Architecture and Planning. And so we learn about San Diego's history kind of one building at a time, or one neighborhood at a time. I want to talk about the cover image here first. And I will say that the presentation here includes color versions where the postcards are in color. The book itself is done in black and white because it's a history series and a lot of historic images are not in color. But here you get the bonus of the original color from the postcards. Most San Diegans have never heard of Wonderland Amusement Park. This elaborate entry, flanked by onion dome towers, was located in Ocean Beach. It was south of Voltaire, right on the beach. It opened on July 4th, 1913. To a crowd of more than 20,000 people. Occupying 8 acres, the park included an animal menagerie, roller coaster, and a fun zone. Wonderland lasted only 2 seasons, as attendance plunged due to the opening of the 1915 Panama, California Exposition in Balboa Park. In 1916, high tides and winter storms damaged the park and later forced its permanent closure. So we're going to be going through the 9 chapters of the book. And the first chapter is called The Ever-Changing City, about how San Diego's amazing growth over the years. The book covers 1890 to 1990, basically. and all the interesting stories that happened during that time. And it covers the entire county of San Diego and a little bit across the border as well. Fifth Street, now Fifth Avenue, in downtown San Diego served as the commercial backbone of what is now the Gaslamp Quarter. Streetcar tracks were first laid along Fifth in 1886 by the San Diego Streetcar Company. In 1892, the company was purchased by John D. Spreckels, and that's a name you're going to be hearing a lot today. And it was incorporated into Spreckels' San Diego Electric Railway Company. The entire 16-mile system eventually was converted to electric operation by 1897. Streetcar number 54, which you can see on the left here, has survived and is on display at the San Diego Electric Railway Museum, which is at the National City Depot. So that was something we didn't know until we did more research on this, that one streetcar actually is still around. Notice the horse. The horses, still horse-drawn carriages crossing the streets and parked along the side of the curb there. Before a tangle of freeways and countless hotels took over Mission Valley, it was a thriving agricultural region, beginning with the founding of the Mission and the Presidio in 1769. Later, farms were intensively cultivated, producing tons of vegetables every year. Dairy farms came in the 1880s, and by 1950, Mission Valley had 20 working dairy farms. Several farmhouses and windmills can still be seen in this 1910 postcard image. You can see in the lower part of the frame, the farmhouse, and there's a windmill just beyond it. I remember as a kid, I came to San Diego in 1967, and driving through Mission Valley, you could still see cows at that time. So that was into the mid-60s. A little bit different today. Orange Avenue in Coronado stretches 1 mile from Bayside Coronado to the Hotel del Coronado. The avenue got its name from the orange trees that were originally planted in the center median in 1886. Unfortunately, wild jackrabbits also enjoyed the fruit trees, consuming them before they could mature. The remaining trees had to be uprooted, but the name stuck. This is a 1910 postcard which shows only palms and trolley tracks in the median. And you can see the dell in the distance there. You see my pointer here. So this is looking west. This is a La Jolla many of you probably won't recognize. Although La Jolla became incorporated as part of San Diego in 1850, no permanent settlers arrived until 1870, when Charles Dean acquired several of the Pueblo lots and subdivided them into an area called La Jolla Park. In 1887, speculators Frank Botsford and George Heald laid out the community. By 1900, La Jolla had grown to 100 buildings and 350 residents. This postcard is looking west from Mount Soledad, and it shows that early period. The intersection at the center right, down here, appears to be Torrey Pines Road at Prospect Place, if you know La Jolla. But they were just dirt roads at this time. So much has changed since 1905. This next chapter is Eileen is going to talk about San Diego's connection to the military.
Thanks, David. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, and the U.S. Navy took over Balboa Park's former exposition grounds to create San Diego's first naval training station. By 1918, up to 6,000 sailors at a time, averaging only 19 years old, trained in the park. Here, you can see soldiers are marching in the Plaza de Panama with the House of Hospitality in the background. Over 50,000 recruits per year learned basic naval procedures in this 2/3 scale destroyer escort, a land-bound ship sailing on the Sea of Concrete. Commissioned in 1949, the USS Recruit was the Navy's only commissioned ship that never touched water. It was nicknamed USS Never Sail by recruits. The plywood ship was outfitted with standard naval rigging and even had a 3-inch gun, but no ammo. In 2004, the USS Recruit was designated a California Historical Landmark. And I'd like to say my dad, who was in the military, also trained on that ship. This is a 1913 view of the submarine USS Grampus on San Diego Bay. It was a tiny vessel, only 63 feet long and 11 feet in the beam. Called the Demon Divers by early admiring San Diego newspapers, these submarines could only submerge to 60 feet. In 1915, the USS Grampus served in the Philippines, where it patrolled the waters off Manila during World War I. After being decommissioned in 1921, the USS Grampus performed its last military service as a target and was unceremoniously sent to the bottom of Manila Bay. The U.S. Army officially opened Camp Callan in early 1941 as a training facility and a defense base. Located in 710 acres along the coastline of La Jolla, Camp Callan provided an ideal setting for 15,000 men to train in coastal artillery and anti-aircraft defense. Due to the dangers of gunnery practice, swimmers and surfers were only allowed to enter the nearby waters on weekends. The camp included a mock training village known as Little Tokyo, as seen here. Today, the former base is home to Torrey Pines Golf Course and the campus of UC San Diego.
Okay, on to chapter 3, which is called Parks and Amusements, about the various areas of play for San Diegans. In 1909, Horton Plaza Park was chosen as the site for a weather kiosk provided by the U.S. Weather Bureau. The kiosk was designed like a miniature Greek temple and was centered in the East Walkway. The kiosk was white enameled cast iron with glass panels that allowed visitors to view meteorological instruments, bulletins, and charts. An opening at the top actually collected rainwater and measured it. In this postcard image, Irving Gill's famed fountain, which is now the centerpiece of the park and is SOHO's logo, has not been constructed yet. This swimming pool with a slide and observation gallery was completed in 1905 for, quote, the purpose of healthful amusement, end quote. The plunge shared a building with the Oceanside Gas and Electric Company plant that was located on the beach where the Junior Seau Beach Community Center is now located. Salt water was pumped in from the ocean into the 90,000-gallon pool and heated to a toasty 83 degrees. The rings hanging above the pool are known as traveling rings and allowed a person to cross the pool without getting wet. Water basketball was also a popular pastime, and you can see the basket here on the right. The Oceanside Plunge was torn down in 1927. Envisioned in anticipation of the 1915 Panama, California Exposition, Sunset Cliffs Park was initially developed by Albert G. Spalding, co-founder of the Spalding Sporting Goods Company. He spent $2 million to develop the park. It included the Japanese-style gardens, cobblestone pathways, palm-thatched shelters, and rustic arched bridges, which linked to outlying rocks. Following Spalding's death in 1915, the park's unique features fell into disrepair, and eventually all of these features disappeared. Located just south of the Hotel del Coronado, Tent City was established in 1900 as an affordable alternative for visitors who couldn't afford to stay at the Hotel Del. The many comforts and conveniences included free ice, restaurants, soda fountain, library, shops, theater, bandstand, dance pavilion, children's rides, telephones, hairdressing parlors, laundry, and mail was delivered twice a day. Tent City also had its own police department and a weekly newspaper. Tent City grew from about 300 tents in its first year of 1900 to more than 1,000 3 years later. If you want to know the cost, an 8x10 furnished tent, excuse me, costs $1.50 a week. Unfurnished tent, $1.50 a week. And if you wanted a furnished tent, that would be up to $6 a week. Tent City actually survived for 38 years. It was closed in 1938. I love the gentlemen in the lower image in their wool suits on the beach. Something you don't see these days. A 5-acre botanical garden at Adams Avenue and Park Boulevard was created in 1890 called The Bluffs. Later renamed Mission Cliff Gardens, the site featured a large pavilion, playground, merry-go-round, and a shooting gallery. In 1904, John Spreckles coaxed the Bentley Ostrich Farm to relocate from Coronado to Mission Cliff Gardens. Visitors particularly enjoyed the ostrich racing, where the large birds could reach a speed of 45 miles per hour. In 1942, the former park was sold and subdivided into residential lots. Scattered pieces of the park still remain, including the entry gate and cobblestone walls. As an ode to their community's history, a pair of ostriches currently crown the entrance sign to University Heights, and this is why. This particular visitor doesn't seem to be enjoying her ostrich ride, but it made for a good postcard. This next chapter is called On the Water, and it's about San Diego's connection to the ocean, in particular the bays. This is the Coronado Ferry Company's 118-foot Ramona on San Diego Bay around 1905. Built in 1903, the Ramona was a steam-powered vessel with side paddle wheels. After 28 years of faithful service, she was retired in 1931 and was later converted into a dine and dance club, but eventually sank in 1937. Under California law, ferry boats are banned from operating within 10 miles of a toll bridge, so the ferry ceased operation in 1969 when the San Diego Coronado Bridge opened. However, in 1986, the toll was removed, so the ferries began service again. And if you haven't been on one of the ferries, it's about a 10 or 15-minute ride across the bay. And they're a little bit smaller than these ferries, but it's something all San Diegans should do. This is another kind of vessel that you don't see anymore. Lumber magnate Simon Benson needed to get logs from Oregon's Columbia River to his mill in San Diego. So he designed these football-shaped log rafts to be towed by tugs. Between 1906 and 1941, these acre-sized rafts made of Oregon logs fueled a construction boom in Southern California. When the rafts arrived in San Diego, the huge bundles were disassembled by crane at the Benson Lumber Company's mill and cut into dimensional lumber. Up to 6 million board feet of lumber was milled from each raft, and that's enough to build 460 average residences from one raft. This is, I have a personal connection to this postcard because late in high school and while I was a junior college student, I worked at SeaWorld for 3 years. And I worked in park operations, and during the summer, I got to work the hydrofoil boats here. SeaWorld was founded by 4 UCLA alumni whose original plan was to build an underwater restaurant. The park opened in 1964, but Shamu didn't debut until a year later. This postcard shows one of SeaWorld's hydrofoil boats sponsored by the Richfield Oil Company. These boats used wing-like foils to lift the hull out of the water, allowing the vessel to go faster. The hydrofoils would take 28 park visitors on a splashy loop around Mission Bay during the summer months only. This unique ride was retired in the 1980s. Okay, Eileen's going to talk about kind of our hotel history in the county.
This is an 1883 photo of the Horton House, which is a 2-story hotel that was located on Broadway. In 1869, the San Diego Bulletin noted the great need of this town is about to be supplied by A.E. Horton, Esquire, who will immediately erect a palatial brick edifice for hotel purposes. It is to contain 100 rooms and to be fitted up with elegant furniture and all modern improvements. The hotel opened in 1870 and cost $150,000. Hotel guests paid $2.50 a day, which included meals. The Horton House came down just 35 years later in 1905 to make way for an even grander hotel, U.S. Grant, which is still there today. In Lakeside, this is the Lakeside Inn, and it was completed in 1887. It was built during the height of the Great Boom. The four-story inn was located near Lindo Lake and included 80 spacious rooms. The Gothic Victorian design was similar to the Hotel del Coronado, so the inn got the nickname the Coronado of the Hills. In circa 1900, Father Henry Umelin assumed management of the inn and established the Net Sanitarium at the hotel. In 1904, the inn was purchased by John H. Gay, who built an auto racetrack adjacent to the hotel. And by 1920, the inn could no longer stay in business and was demolished. In Del Mar, the Stratford Inn was built on 10 acres overlooking the beach in Del Mar. The South Coast Land Company constructed the resort seen here in 1922. Prominent LA architect John C. Austin modeled the hotel after the Elizabethan buildings in Stratford-on-Avon in England. The Stratford Inn officially opened in 1909 and later became a hotspot for Hollywood elites who were in town to watch the horse races just down the way. The hotel eventually closed in 1963 and was demolished in 1969. Since 1989, L'Auberge Del Mar Hotel has occupied the site. The Stratford's legacy is still strong because of Del Mar's unofficial style, which remains English Tudor. Here's the Hanalei Hotel, which is in Mission Valley. And it's one of Mission Valley's oldest hotels, built in 1959. It was originally a 66-unit motor hotel. Charles Brown invested $3.5 million to remodel and enlarge the hotel in 1966, adopting the Polynesian tiki style to satisfy America's post-World War II fascination with the South Pacific. The hotel included the Islands Restaurant, which was an elaborate tiki decor and tropical drinks. In a heartbreaking move, the hotel's island charm and iconic sign were obliterated by 2006 remodel. The now faceless hotel is known as Crown Plaza in Mission Valley. This building is El Cortez Hotel in downtown San Diego. And Richard Robinson Jr. financed the construction of this Spanish colonial revival style hotel, which opened in 1927 as the tallest building in San Diego. In 1940, a sky room bar was added to the top floor. In 1956, the hotel underwent a major remodel, which included an outdoor glass elevator, as you can see here on the left. The elevator, nicknamed the Starlight Express, gave passengers a thrilling ride with breathtaking views. By the late 1990s, El Cortez had become run down and was threatened with demolition. In 2000, the building was restored to its 1927 appearance without the glass elevator, neon stars, and sky room.
And the reason this is in the book, we know that the El Cortez is still standing, but this particular version of the El Cortez no longer has survived. That glass elevator was removed as part of that restoration. So many San Diegans don't remember this version of the hotel. Okay, I'm going to be speaking to San Diego's aviation history, and San Diego was once known as the air capital of the West. In 1922, former Army Air Corps pilot T. Claude Ryan came to San Diego and began a flying school and aerial sightseeing company. He later went on to establish Ryan Airlines, Ryan Aeronautical Company, and Ryan School of Aeronautics at Lindbergh Field. In 1925, Ryan Airlines became the first commercial airline to operate out of San Diego. This postcard of pilot trainees in San Diego was postmarked December 27th, 1941, just 20 days after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. So you can imagine that many of the men in this photo fought in the war, and probably many of them did not return. Longer than 2 football fields, the USS Shenandoah was the first rigid airship built in the United States and the first in the world to be inflated with helium. Seen here at North Island Naval Air Station in 1924, the Shenandoah had traveled from Lakehurst, New Jersey. This was the first flight of a rigid airship across North America. As noted in the postcard's handwritten caption at the top, the Shenandoah indeed blew apart in 1925 in a severe storm over Ohio, killing 14 of the 43 persons on board. I think Spielberg or James Cameron should do a movie about this, because when we researched the story of the Shenandoah, it's an amazing story of not only engineering but survival. When the ship was torn apart in the storm, it broke into pieces, and the survivors actually were clinging on to the broken frame of the pieces as they drifted back toward the earth. And luckily, some of them were large enough to fall slowly and not kill all 43 persons on board. So I think it's equally dramatic, I think, to the Hindenburg. Consolidated Aircraft Corporation, which later became Convair and then General Dynamics, became one of the largest civilian employers in San Diego. The company moved its headquarters from Buffalo, New York, to San Diego in 1935. By 1943, of course, during the war, approximately 40,000 were employed locally, of which 40% were women. In a 1944 promotional booklet, quote, "Feminine workers vary in age from youthful school-age employees who turn out bomber parts at the same time receive high school credit, to 70-year-old grandmothers who have taken their places on assembly lines until victory is won," end quote. These are B-24 bombers being assembled. Chapter 8 focuses on what we call the lost buildings. We've already talked about a few buildings that have disappeared. This chapter is dedicated to the buildings that, if they stood today, would be some of our most cherished landmarks.
This is chapter 7. When we had
Oh, I'm
fun.
sorry. Did I skip? Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Eileen. I skipped it. I skipped a page. Sorry. This is, yes, when we had fun. So go ahead, Eileen.
Yes, let's go for it. This postcard shows the streamlined modern Glacier Gardens ice rink, located in the intersection of 8th Avenue and Harbor Drive, and it opened in 1939. The gardens were home to the San Diego Skyhawks of the Pacific Coast Hockey League and the San Diego Figure Skating Club. It was later called the San Diego Arena. The 5,000-seat venue hosted 4 concerts from budding star Elvis Presley in 1956. Tickets were $1.50 at the door, and Glacier Gardens was unfortunately torn down in the mid-1960s. The Zorro Gardens is the most unique and controversial exhibit at the 1935 California Pacific International Exposition in Balboa Park, and it was a nudist colony. This strategically blurred postcard shows 10 of the colonists posing with bows and arrows, a parrot, and not much else. These women and men occupied a stone-lined grotto and performed daily rituals to the sun god. The Zora Gardens program reads, quote, healthy young men and women indulging in the freedom of outdoor living in which they so devotedly believe have opened their colony to the friendly, curious gaze of the public, unquote. The Zora Garden survived multiple protests and went on to become the exposition's most lucrative outdoor attraction. The garden, next to the Fleet Science Center, is now a butterfly garden. And in La Jolla, this is the La Jolla bathhouse. And this circa 1910 postcard shows the second bathhouse that was built above La Jolla Cove in 1906. The original 1894 bathhouse was burned down due to a kitchen fire. This larger replacement bathhouse was designed by Irving Gill. The new facility became a popular spot for dancing and dining. In addition to 180 dressing rooms and lockers, the bathhouse had a bowling alley, auditorium, and a swimming pool. In 1925, the building was torn down after complaints that it had become an unsanitary eyesore. And now we'll go to chapter 8.
Thanks, Eileen. I jumped ahead a little too soon, but this is a chapter devoted to some of our most important lost buildings. San Diego State University can trace its origins to the State Normal School, first located at downtown's George Hill building, before moving to University Heights at the corner of Park Boulevard and Normal Street into this building. Designed in the Beaux-Arts style by William Hubbard and Irving Gill, the design borrowed heavily from the Art Palace at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. In 1955, this elegant building was unceremoniously demolished by the San Diego Unified School District and replaced by the mundane education center complex that still is on the site today. The 1889 San Diego County Courthouse was located on Broadway between Front and Union Streets, on land donated by Alonzo Horton. The Italian Renaissance-style building included a bell and clock tower topped by a 10-foot gilded statue of Lady Justice. The courthouse had 3 courtrooms and a jail, featured hand-painted frescoes and stained glass windows. The stately building was demolished in 1959 for a new modernist county courthouse. Lady Justice was salvaged, however, and is now displayed at the San Diego History Center. I don't know what happened to all those beautiful stained glass windows, but hopefully they survived and got relocated somewhere as well. The downtown Santa Fe Depot, seen in this 1912 postcard, was built in 1887. Originally, the California Southern Railroad Company built the building, and the Victorian-era station was located at Broadway and Pacific Highway, which were originally D and Atlantic Streets. It was demolished in 1915 after the much larger Spanish Revival-style depot was constructed across the tracks, and that's the one we know today. It was enlarged, or they built a new building to handle crowds headed to the exposition in Balboa Park. This one was deemed too small to handle the job. The 1924 Commonwealth Building was developed by Alexander Pantages and featured his 2,000-seat Pantages Theater for vaudeville performances. The theater was adapted to show movies and then became the RKO Orpheum in 1929. The Spanish Colonial Revival-style theater at the corner of Fifth Avenue and B Street was demolished in 1964 for the First National Bank Tower. I've heard stories that this building, built mostly out of concrete, was so sturdy that the demolition company went out of business because it took them so long to tear it down. So a little bit of revenge for the old building. Some of you probably remember this building and maybe even saw a movie here. This theater had its gala premiere on July 19th, 1963. The first film was 55 Days at Peking, a historical war epic starring Charlton Heston. The modern style theater included a semicircular glass lobby, a large cinerama screen, and seating capacity for 1,000. Located in the heart of Mission Valley, the theater was easily seen and accessed from the 8 freeway. After closing in 1998, the building served as a church and later a sporting goods store before being demolished and replaced by condominiums. Across Broadway from the train depot, Los Banos Bathhouse was an architectural showpiece built in the Spanish Moorish style by Hebert and Gill. The bathhouse opened in August of 1897. Admission was 25 cents, which included a swimsuit, towel, and a key to the locker room. The indoor concrete plunge tank was 50 feet by 100 feet, filled with seawater from the bay, and was covered by a spectacular glass roof, which you can see in the lower image. SDG&E tore down Los Banos Bathhouse to expand their power plant in 1928. So SDG&E was a villain even back then. Now, this is the only image we're showing which is not a postcard, because postcards of Horton Plaza are still copyright protected. So this is actually a photograph I took as an architectural student in 1987. Designed by LA architect John Jurdy, FAIA, this postmodern style shopping center transformed 6.5 blocks in the center of downtown San Diego. The project was a gamble by developer Ernest Hahn to bring shoppers back downtown. Hahn once accurately described the mall as, quote, half Disneyland, half Italian Hilltown, end quote. Horton Plaza became a catalyst for downtown revitalization and influenced the development of similar malls throughout the world. As late as 2004, Horton Plaza continued to generate San Diego's highest retail sales per square foot. The mall eventually fell victim to the great mall die-off and became a retail ghost town by 2018. Today, Horton Plaza Mall is being heavily remodeled into the campus at Horton, focused on providing high-tech offices with retail. A few features are being retained, but the Horton Plaza in this image has all but disappeared. And if many of you have been following this in the newspaper, the developer is something like $300 million in debt and has declared bankruptcy. So what's going to happen with this site, which is almost completed in its conversion? We'll have to keep watching that. This is the final chapter. This is kind of the quirkiness of San Diego and San Diego County, called Only in San Diego. This 1913 postcard carries the caption, Once in a Lifetime in San Diego, and shows a crowd at the Horton Plaza Park fountain with children standing on the frozen water. The January 6, 1913 San Diego Tribune reported, quote, the city awoke this morning in a climate apparently transplanted. Shivers ran where shivers had not run before, and the Weather Bureau was bombarded from early morn with telephone calls to know the reason why, end quote. It didn't snow that day, but a sudden and rare cold front blew into the city, dropping temperatures to 20 degrees, which left the fountain covered in ice. I'm so glad they were able to capture this moment and make a postcard out of it. William R. McKean designed these unique gas-powered motor cars on rails, which were 55 feet long and featured a pointed nose and porthole windows. Looks like something out of Jules Verne. In 1908, 2 McKean cars were purchased by the Los Angeles and San Diego Beach Railway. Because of their odd appearance and color, the cars were nicknamed Submarines and Red Devils. Stops included Old Town, Pacific Beach, and La Jolla. The cars served until 1914. Wouldn't it be great to ride one of these from Old Town into La Jolla? In late 1915, after 4 years of drought, the San Diego City Council agreed to pay legendary rainmaker Charles Hatfield $10,000 to trigger enough rain to fill Lake Morena. In January of the next year, 1916, Hatfield built a wood tower to release a secret mix of chemicals to coax water from the heavens. Soon after, the rains came for 2 straight weeks until Lower Otay Dam collapsed. This postcard of Mission Valley depicts the San Diego River overflowing. The worst natural disaster in San Diego's history was reported to have caused at least 20 deaths, along with many bridges, buildings, roads, and rail lines washed away. Hatfield tried to collect his $10,000, but the city council would only pay him if he also accepted liability for $3.5 million in damages. Hatfield sued the city, and two courts found that the rain was an act of God, which absolved Hatfield from liability, but also meant he was not responsible for making the rain and would not get paid. I've got one final postcard here. Many of us, I'm sure, remember the San Diego chicken, who was hatched in 1974 as a radio mascot to rock station KGB-FM. Inside the colorful fowl was Ted Gianolis, who got the gig with no formal audition or interview. At the ballpark, Gianolis entertained fans with humorous antics, and his popularity soared. Famously fired by KGB over a contract dispute, the chicken rehatched his career as a freelance fowl in 1979 and eventually made over 5,100 appearances all over the country. In 1999, the chicken faced yet another challenge after being sued for beating up Barney the dinosaur in a popular skit. The chicken won that lawsuit too, and is now nesting comfortably in retirement in San Diego. And with that, we'll conclude our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer your questions.
Well, thanks, both of you. That was a great presentation. Let me see if we have questions here. Were there any unexpected or quirky discoveries, like odd landmarks or forgotten events that didn't fit the usual narrative of San Diego? I know the fountain freezing over was one of those. Any others come to mind?
That didn't fit the usual narrative. Well, I mean, a lot of people that are long-term San Diegans have heard of Zorro Gardens before, the nudist colony at the expo, but you don't associate a naked exhibit with Balboa Park these days. So the more we learned about that and kind of how it came about, and the fact that it was controversial, but survived all the controversies and continued on for the full 2 years of the expo, is a pretty fascinating story. Postcards of that event are very rare because I'm sure many postcards were sold, but I'm sure the wives and girlfriends, when they found them, tore them up, or they were hidden under mattresses and forgotten. So when you find a postcard of Zorro Gardens, it's a rare find. Eileen, I don't know if you have any answer to that question.
I think that was perfect. Thanks, David.
Okay.
In the next to last photo of flooded Mission Valley is one of the two houses, the Ferrari brothers' house.
I don't think so, because I think the Ferrari house was a little bit higher up in the hill. So the Ferrari house is one of the few remaining homes of the period. And it is if you're on Camino del Rio North, you could kind of see it on the left side, on the south side, looking up towards the hill. It's a little yellow Craftsman Victorian type building.
Is the ballpark where Barnum and Bailey Circus was?
The current ballpark, Petco Park?
It doesn't say.
Okay. I'm not sure. I know that circuses tend to set up. I think now they set up in parking lots and things. So I'm not sure. They may have set up, but the immediate area of the ballpark, there were some old warehouses that were demolished. There was an SDG&E building that was imploded, and then of course the candy factory moved a block to make room for the park of the park. The Western Metal building, of course, was adaptively reused and included in the park. But there were open lots and areas. But I think the East Village area was a little bit too industrial. They probably would have set up in another location closer to a residential area or commercial area.
They added off Friars Road with a cornfield next to it.
Friars Road, cornfield. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Did working on this book change the way you see the city today?
Eileen, you want to start on that one?
I think so. I think um, when we were working on this book, it just seemed like the past lives of people in San Diego were so much fun. And we've lost a lot of them, just like uh, the, Ocean Beach Wonderland Park. Nobody would have, figured that we actually had something like what they have in Santa Monica. So it was really interesting, a lot of fun-filled places that people actually entertain themselves at, and it's kind of too bad that we did lose a lot of them.
I've
We
heard
said,
that from people as well. When they see images from the book, they first thing they say is, "I wish that was still here. I would love
right.
to see that." Like Mission Cliff Gardens. That would be a beautiful place to go take your engagement photos or have a picnic. So that's why I think what SOHO does and the whole preservation movement is so important. Is you don't have to keep everything, but keep the good stuff. And over the years, we've lost a lot of good stuff, and that's really sad to see.
If you could travel back in time to be in at where one of these postcards is set, would you have a favorite or someplace other than Mission Cliff Gardens that you just mentioned?
I'll start. I think I'm a Balboa Park aficionado first and foremost, and being at either expo, but probably the 1915 expo would have been amazing. The world they created, and the whole Spanish fantasy city that some of the buildings are still there. That would have been pretty wild. And then I could have bought all those postcards brand new and for less expensive than eBay. So that would have been nice.
I think I would have loved to stay at Tent City in Coronado.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been able to afford $6 at that time. Probably stay at an unfurnished tent for $1.50. But that looked like fun. I mean, we've seen other postcards of Tent City, and just all of, again, the amusement areas around there just seemed really, really fun and engaging. They really knew how to draw in the crowds during that time.
And no cell phone distractions.
That's true, but they did have telephones still.
They did. They did.
Other than the Llanos Bath, are there any other buildings built in the Spanish style that you found from forgotten San Diego?
Well, I did talk about the Commonwealth building, the Orpheum Theater. That was a Spanish style as well. But yeah, I mean, as many of you know, the Spanish revival really really became a big thing after the 1915 Expo. And so that was really San Diego's adopted style. Sorry. Eileen, I don't know if you want to touch on that.
I think that was, yeah, a lot of the buildings back then, especially the theater, was really grandiose, and really were landmark buildings. And so it's really sad to see that those were gone.
One of the buildings featured in that in the book is everybody knows the downtown Santa Fe Depot today, which is Spanish Revival, Mission Revival, kind of a mix. But it used to have a beautiful forecourt on the south end, which extended all the way to Broadway. And right now there's a little public plaza there, but it used to be open arcades that wrapped around, and there was a trolley stop right on Broadway. And that was demolished to make way for a parking lot in the 1950s. Probably because it wasn't garnering any rent. It was all kind of open air space. But it was a beautiful courtyard, and it was, a large part of that original design, which is missing. So even though we still have the depot, we don't have the whole depot. We only have about 2/3 of it that has survived.
Somebody's asking if you have any thoughts or comments on the Horton Plaza redo. I know you touched on that a little bit. Anything to add to that?
Yeah. There's actually working with the AIA Preservation Committee, which I chair, and also SOHO. we were in negotiations with the developer over, I think, a 3 or 4 year period in order for them to, they were adaptively reusing the buildings, which for the most part were just empty boxes for department stores. But there's several iconic features that are part of Horton Plaza, including the triangular tile, white and black tile tower that's in the center. And we worked with them over that 4 year period, and we came up with a memorandum of understanding where they agreed to save a lot of the components of the original mall that weren't in the way of what they were trying to do. And so they had done that. I'm concerned now that they're in bankruptcy and the property is in receivership and will probably be sold off, is that memorandum of understanding, which was protecting some of those most iconic features of the original mall, that agreement will fall to the wayside, fall through the cracks. We're going to, try to be in communication with the new owners whenever they come about, but there's a way to adaptively reuse a historic building, and even though the Horton Plaza Mall is not technically historic, it's definitely eligible, and it was a very influential building nationwide. And we think it would have been designated if it was older than 45 years at the time the construction started. But I've lobbied, and we were successful in that agreement. But now that it's in bankruptcy, we're a little concerned that, about what might happen.
Right. Postcards often reflect the attitudes of their time. Were there any trends or patterns you noticed that told a bigger story about how San Diego wanted to be seen or saw itself during the different decades?
Eileen, you want to touch on that?
Well, I think, David, since you have the larger collection, and you see a lot of these all the time, why don't you go ahead and speak to that?
Well, I mean, just the whole idea of postcards, which came about in the end of the 1800s, they were, cameras were around, but not everybody had one. And of course, certainly people didn't have them in their pockets with their cell phones. So a lot of times people, when they were traveling, the only way to send an image was to buy a postcard, either of a place they've visited or wanted to visit. What's interesting is when you get postcards with messages on them, they're very rarely about what's on the postcard. They're usually about, just a note to somebody about, I'm here, or I'll see you in 2 weeks when I return, or maybe about the weather, but they won't say, in this postcard, this is where I stayed overnight, or this is where I had dinner. Oftentimes they would just buy one that was handy and they would use it just as a letter. But what's great about postcards is they were used to promote San Diego as a beautiful sunshine state, sunshine city. There's many postcards that talk about the weather, and some are in the book, and they talk about the beaches, and some are fairly generic. They show just some people frolicking on the beach, and the same postcard was used for Los Angeles and San Diego. But it was really to promote the sunshine and the outdoor living. And interestingly, some buildings that I consider quite prominent, like the Balboa Theater, in my 30 years of collecting postcards, I've never seen a single postcard of the Balboa Theater. And I'm not sure why, because it was a large public building. So in the book, since it features 99% of it is postcards. If it wasn't documented in a postcard, it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it means it's not in the book, because the book is postcard history. So, there are things that are forgotten about San Diego beyond what's in the book, but we featured the ones that were captured in postcards.
The other thing is that postcards are really a forgotten art. You don't see postcards anymore. And just like David said, photographs, selfies, and posts on like Facebook or Instagram is much of the in thing now. So it's something that is, something that we'd love to keep, and as memoirs to our past San Diego. I think it's really a great feature.
Yeah, I see one of the comments was about San Diego being the tuna capital of the world. That is in fact true. And one of the images in the book is about San Diego's tuna industry and how the tuna safe nets that were came into play really kind of ended San Diego's tuna capital title. And pretty much all of that moved south of the border where they don't follow the same regulations that we do.
Do you have any postcards about the health spas in Carlsbad and Escondido?
Yes, yeah, we have it's in the book. There's a Carlsbad by the Sea, which was a spa kind of sanitarium retreat. Has a great history to it. That was actually a project we worked on as architects, where they were building a large senior housing development, and we got them to reconstruct the whole front part, which is the historic part of the hotel. And there's a story about the weeping eucalyptus tree that was on site. So that was the one in Carlsbad. What was the other town they mentioned?
Escondido.
Did we mention I don't think we mentioned one in
I don't think
Escondido.
so.
Yeah, there is a Escondido High Schools in the book, which was a great kind of Gothic revival building, and many other hotels and retreats are included as well.
Great. So that's about it. Well, thank you, Eileen and David. It was wonderful to have you with us today to share your knowledge of San Diego's forgotten history. And we thank you for bringing the city's past to life with such engaging storytelling. At SOHO, we deeply value the power of storytelling and historic preservation. Events like this offer us the chance to reflect on our past and consider how it shapes our future. Be sure to pick up a copy of Eileen and David's great book if you haven't already. We have it at the Marston House Museum shop. And as always, SOHO members get a 15% discount. And as we continue our exploration of local history, we invite you all to join us on May 10th at 11 a.m. when historian and preservation advocate Janet O'Day will explore the remarkable figures and architectural legacy of Mission Hills. And I'd like to remind all SOHO members about an exciting opportunity. In celebration of National Preservation Month, from May 1st to 18th, you can enjoy free admission to over 60 museums, historic sites, and cultural attractions throughout San Diego County through the Big Exchange, presented by the San Diego Museum Council. Simply show your membership card at participating locations to take advantage of this special offer. Visit sandiegomuseumcouncil.org for a list of participating museums and more information. Thanks to all of you who joined us today for Penning the Past. Past webinars are available to watch or revisit on the SOHO San Diego YouTube channel. And be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you again. We look forward to seeing you all at our upcoming events. And thank you again, Eileen and David. What a great presentation. We appreciate having you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dean.
you.
I did see the question about buying the book. In addition to the Marston House Museum, you could find our book on Amazon, and you could also find it on the Arcadia website, who is the publisher. So if you like the presentation, you'll like the book.
Yeah, you will. I have a copy of the book and I love it. So I'm sure everybody else will too. Okay, thanks again, guys, and we'll see everybody next month.
Thank you.